Why am I feeling stuck? Let me just pause because I'm noticing hesitation. Oh, I think the hesitation is there because I'm having a thought that says you're going to do something wrong. You're going to do something that you shouldn't do. And the reason why I'm having a thought is because I'm about to tell a story about what actually happened, but it involves someone else. So this is so fascinating to me. I notice that whenever I come out of a flow of speech, when I'm wanting to just be talking, I noticed that sensationally my body goes into like a sleep mode. Like I literally feel my body just shutting down, which feels like it's going into conserve mode. And very little energy is available to continue. So I'm noticing that. It's so fascinating. The story that I want to share is that I was in an experience where I felt aggression coming towards me no matter what I did and no matter what I said. And it was pretty persistent, and it created a feeling in me to keep shutting down. Speaking of shutting down, it created a feeling in me to not use my voice honestly, transparently. Yeah, just not be vocal. It created an experience where I wanted to just avoid altogether in the name of keeping peace. But meanwhile, surprise, surprise, I wasn't experiencing peace with inside of me. I didn't have a name for what I decided to do back then. But in terms of applying the idea of being your ask, I decided to be my ask. If I were asking this person to stop coming towards me with aggression, if I wanted him to do that, to be cordial, to be respectful, to be present with me, to be honest with me, then I needed to go first. And I decided to go first. Whether or not I needed to go first, I decided to go first. But the way that I did it was, it wasn't like a direct path or match to all of those things that I described in terms of using my voice and speaking honestly and transparently. I didn't do it that way. I decided one thing. I decided that I would be pleasant. No matter how he showed up towards me, no matter what came out of his mouth that was rude, insensitive, inconsiderate, etc., no matter what he did in terms of behavior that showed aggression, other than, physically attacking me, which was never the case, that I would just present as pleasantness, that I would speak very few words, and whatever words that I would speak, they would be pleasant, they would sound pleasant, and I would physically move my body in a pleasant way. Meaning, like, I wouldn't stomp my feet. Do things like that. Like, I wouldn't slam things down. I wouldn't move sharply in my movement whenever he would come around. I would be an image or a reflection or an experience of pleasantness. So I did that. And let me tell you, that shit was not easy. Because my ego, what I didn't do is I didn't allow my ego to go off leash. That shit was on a leash, and I kept it on a leash. So, if he had something rude to say, I would either not respond, or I would say things like, so how are you feeling? Do you want anything to drink? Can I bring you anything? Or do you need anything? If I were leaving the room where we were at to go get something, if he had requested, like, I would move softly. And I just held this impression of pleasantness, even in the tone of voice that I would use. It was one way the entire time. He gives me nasty, I give him kindness. He gives me aggression, I give him sweetness. Like, the whole objective was to give him nothing but honey. And I don't mean that kind of honey. Just in my speech, in my interaction with him, and in my movement. And ultimately, I didn't give him any fire logs to add to whatever flame, whatever aggression, whatever power trip he was on. So naturally, he had nothing to fight with. He had nothing to fight with. And that continued for probably a month and a half to 2 months. And let me tell you, that shit worked. It worked. If I wasn't giving him no pushback, if I didn't give him aggression back, if I didn't give him, any of that back, if I didn't give him resistance, he just, like, all he had to interact with was the sweetness, was the pleasantness. That's all I gave him. That's all he had to interact with. So what do? Do you keep fighting pleasantness? Like, it's like, I don't know how, I don't know. Anyway, in our particular situation, I was able to transform my experience with relating to him by being my ask. If I wanted him to treat me in a certain way, if I wanted our interaction to occur in a certain way, and I did, then I was being the ask. I took up that assignment with inside of me. And while my ego did not appreciate it, it had to submit to what I decided was going to be. And it did, eventually, gradually. So, like, while that was in process, that, like, the ego was gradually quieting down more and more and more, on the other side, he was becoming a reflection of what was happening with me. That aggression within him, it transitioned to an energy of presence and consideration and pleasantness. I think, I ran that experiment one other time with the same individual. I could see there was like a major move, and right around that time, however way he was presenting towards me before with that level of aggression, etc., that had resurfaced. And so once again, I just reapplied that same experimentation of being my ask. If I want him to move a certain way, if I want him to present towards me in a certain way, let me go first. Let me be my ask. Applying this idea of being your ask, I don't think it's like a grand thing. It might be perceived as this grand thing to do because when the ego is front and center, then the ego is going to, project its thoughts and feelings to perceive it as this grand thing, this impossible thing, this lofty thing. But yeah, I think that there are other ways, of fulfilling that idea of being your ask. I think it could be as simple as, well, if you are, interfacing with someone who is, consistently rude. It's really this, that if you find that the relationship is meaningful to you to the degree that you want to cultivate instances where you can experience that relationship with a lot more pleasantness, with a lot more ease, with a lot more transparency, authenticity, all of the things, which definitely was the case with this particular somebody, because this particular somebody is quite permanent in a sense in my life. You can decide to be whatever experience and or expression that you are wanting to receive from the other person. You can be the model of that. You can be the example of that. The only aspect that will come to the forefront to go to war about this, to resist this opportunity, is your ego, is your thinking, is your believing. And personally, I just was like, yeah, I'm at war, and you know what? I'm not really feeling this war thing. Like I don't, that's not my life. Like, that's not something that I want to continue. That's not something I want to cultivate. How the fuck do I get out of this? That is something that I personally will always come to. It's like, if I find myself in a war, whether it's with me or with someone else, war meaning I find myself in resistance towards something or in conflict, I'm going to ask, how do I experience relief from this? And when I ask, I don't make it about them. That's not their business. I'm the one asking. I'm asking me. So it's my business. If I make it my business, which I do, then I'm going to ask me, how can I best accomplish that? For me, that was one of the applications. It's just to model what it is that I would like to see in the other, what it is that I would like to experience in the other.